Well, thank you for being here. Like I said, I just want to welcome everyone as we're tuning in. And here's what I would like to invite you to do as you're just getting started tuning in here right now. Hop into the chat. If you could pick one word that describes how your body has been feeling this week. I always like to get tuned in and to see, what's coming up, where's your body at right now? So go ahead and pop that into the chat, please. And yeah, letting us know kind of what's going on. Let me pull up my chat so I can actually see the chat. So heavy, someone said heavy, definitely can relate to that. Thank you for sharing and being honest, right? I mean, it's not always easy. Brain constantly on. Yes. Feels like it's just going and going and going, that wired but tired feeling. And we're going to actually be talking about this, always thinking. This is going to be very, very relevant to our conversation today. So thanks for putting some of those feedback. Just again, stiff. Okay, so stiff due to post-surgery. That's definitely understandable. We're going to be talking about how pain perception is tied to our conversation, as well as anxiety and kind of those racing, ruminating thoughts. So yes, good to know. Good to know, ladies, of where you are. And I just want you to know right now, women over 40 are doing more than ever to think about optimizing their health, right? Whether we hear these things all the time, whether it's tracking macros, whether it's trying intermittent fasting, whether it is, I'm just trying to continue to let people as they're joining in here. So actually, you know what? I know we have a few people. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Jenny. Great to see you. I'm going to kind of go back. I had a couple people already chat in, but I would love to hear what's one word to describe how your body has been feeling most recently this week. Um, Always good starting place to like check in with ourselves. Hi, Chris. Great to see you. Joanne, great to see you as well. So we're starting off with just naming one word that describes where your body is right now. How has it been feeling? If you could just, what's the top word that comes to mind? We've had brain constantly on. You can put it into the chat. Stiff, definitely stiff. Chris, so good to see you. It's been a while.
I am so dark.
You got a little, light in the background. All right. So yes, so I have stiff, always thinking, brain always on. What's one word that's describing how your body is right now? It's good to do that check-in. So stiff as well. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about this. So, like I said, right now is the time where honestly, a little tired after workout. Okay, well, you got your workout in. That's great, Jenny. I love to see that. We're gonna be talking about what is so common. So many women, especially over 40, are doing a ton of things to optimize their health, whether it's we're talking about tracking macros, intermittent fasting, counting calories, whether it's a matter of, you know, cutting carbs or even using things like AI tools and stuff to try and optimize our health, right? Whether it's the new Aura Ring, whether it is the new medications, GLP-1s are like through the roof in terms of popularity. So you have to be off camera. That's okay. Totally get that. I'm just happy you're here. And yet, what we know is that women are more exhausted, more inflamed, and more frustrated than ever. So put a me in the chat if you can relate to any of what I've been saying. If any of those things you feel like you've been trying a lot of things, me, yeah, definitely. Okay. Chris, you're in the right place and you're not alone. So I'm glad that we're having this important conversation today. Yes. Okay, I'm just looking. And Estella, me, yes, you guys can relate to this. Me too, Joanne. Okay. So we're clearly, it's not for lack of discipline. It's not for not trying hard, at least Michelle, me. So pretty much everyone's saying, yeah, I can relate to this. I definitely can experience like my body is not the same as it used to be, right? So today I want to offer a completely different lens and a different perspective. And it's not for lack of discipline, it's not for lack of hard work. It's what if you're not doing the wrong things, but we've been focusing on the wrong system, right? This is the reframe. Most conversations when it comes to hormone health and women's hormone health, especially at this season of life after 40, the conversations around perimenopause and menopause, they're focused on estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. I talk about these things all the time too, right? Hormones are important. However, hormones don't operate in a vacuum. They operate as part of an entire system. And I think what is often missing from this conversation about hormones is the effect on the communication system that is intimately linked and tied to our hormones. And what I'm talking about here is that system that starts in your brain, right? That communication system starts in your brain. And we tend to not think about it because everyone's so focused on the hormonal changes that are happening in their body. They're not necessarily focused on how this has an effect on our brain and our communication system. So, right now, I want to share with you a pretty sobering statistic. Right now, 1 in 4 women in midlife are on some type of antidepressant. 1 in 4. That's really high. Going back to what some of you were saying about just like the constant racing thoughts or the hard time sleeping, right? Prescriptions for GLP-1 medications have increased over 300% in the last several years. So what does that tell us? I'm here letting some more people join. That tells us women are not lazy. It's not that they're not doing things or trying things to improve their health, their mental focus and clarity, having that sharpness and that productivity, that efficiency, as opposed to brain fog. And I feel like I can't stay focused. It's not for lack of trying. It's not for even from a metabolic health. When we think about weight gain, that is directly tied to our communication system. How is the body communicating and signaling safety and ample supply of what we need or not, right? So we're going to go back to thinking about before we talk about hormones, before we talk about habits, before we talk about food. I think it's really, really important here to talk about what actually is driving your behavior, and that is neurotransmitters. Yes, neurotransmitters. These are the chemicals in the brain that drive your behavior. And I want to invite you to think about 3 different chemicals. And actually, before we dive in there, for those of you that I do not know, because I know this is streaming in a couple different platforms as well. Hello, my name is Amanda Hinman. I am the founder of Hinman Holistic Health, where I am so eager and passionate about helping to support women over the age of 40 to feel empowered and in control of their health because they understand their bodies and they know what is going to move the needle, what's going to make a difference. So, welcome. If you're new to this world, you're new to our hormone freedom method. This is really about education, inspiration, empowerment so that you can make choices to align with your health goals. So, welcome. Glad to connect with you. And today we're going to be talking about brain chemicals, 3 big neurotransmitters. The first one is dopamine. Dopamine, I want you to think of dopamine as your drive chemical. This is the neurotransmitter that if it gets you started, it helps you to take action and it helps you to follow through. So if dopamine is low, then you're in the situation you're thinking like, I know what I should be doing. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it as often. I just can't seem to like stick with it, right? So dopamine is an important thing. And actually people tend to think of dopamine as the pleasure hormone, right? We always think about that as the pleasure hormone. People say, oh, it's a dopamine fix. And we probably have heard so many different behavior patterns impact our dopamine. But it's not just pleasure, it's actually that initiation hormone. So it's not that we just are seeking pleasure. It's like, what is getting us to act? In fact, there was a study that showed it followed animals in the wild, and their dopamine centers started to trigger in the brain when they, like, if they're out in, like big herd animals that are out in safari and they are looking for a water source because that's a source of hydration and nourishment, right? Their dopamine started firing off in the brain when they could smell water supply. Not once they got to the water and they were actually drinking it and, you know, hydrating themselves, once their brain could sense the smell of the water supply. And why is that? Because dopamine is going to be that initiation neurotransmitter. It's that chemical that starting power to go and travel to make the herd move towards the water supply so that it could have its needs met, right? So dopamine is neurotransmitter chemical number 1. Number 2 is norepinephrine. And this is, think about as your energy and your readiness communication signal. It's a neurotransmitter again in the brain that helps us to have an ability to handle life. oftentimes people tend to associate this with stress. It is created in the adrenals, and stress obviously can become imbalanced. But when we don't have enough, when it's too low, this is when you can have brain fog and fatigue. And if it's too high, this is where we can lean on the side of excitability. Like my brain never shuts off. It's that consistent stream of thoughts, right? That can lead to anxiety. So an imbalance in communication of norepinephrine can actually be linked to either extreme, whether it's brain fog, fatigue, can't focus, or excitability, anxiety, thoughts that just don't seem to quiet down. So that's neurotransmitter chemical number two. Number three is serotonin. Serotonin, why is this so important? Serotonin, think about your stability and your control, your ability to keep you steady, emotionally steady and balanced. And it regulates your mood, it regulates your impulses, it regulates your consistency. And when serotonin is low, this is when you have emotional eating, when you have overwhelm, that sense of like, oh, there's just so much I can't keep up with it, can't keep on track. And this is when we have the starting and the stopping. Oh, I'm going to start a new meal plan, I'm going to start a new activity, I'm going to start it, and then we just kind of fall off, right? So we don't have that steady supply of serotonin. So now here's the key. When these chemicals are off balance, that is when your body starts to you have trouble executing on the habits that would be beneficial, and you're not seeing the effect, right? Things are just not there. We're not creating the results that we desire. So this is not about a discipline problem. It is a sequencing problem of first understanding what signal is talking the loudest, and where do we want to prioritize bringing that into balance. So I want to pause here and check in. Can anyone relate to any of those things that I just talked about? Put in one, two, or three. If you think of it's more of a drive, like a follow through or a starting dopamine type of a thing, just put in the chat if anything is relating to you about like dopamine. Hey, I have a hard time starting, hard time like taking action or following through. If it's going to be more of a norepinephrine imbalance, maybe I had just so much bad brain fog and fatigue, or the other side of the spectrum where it's like my brain isn't shutting off, it's just going and going and going, and I have those anxious thoughts. Then it's the serotonin, the consistency, the steadiness. So Jenny's saying problem with consistency, start but don't follow through. Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing this, Chris. I've experienced all three, but more three late starting and stopping. Okay, so this is helpful, right? Our body is, and again, we want to understand what are these communication signals. It varies, Lisa Michelle. Okay, so the reality is it's usually not one or the other, but it's helpful to know what is driving, what is speaking the loudest, right? What's really amplifying. And Estella says, brain going and causes anxiousness, going and going and going. Okay, all three, yes, all three, but mostly one and two. Okay, so this is really helpful. And this is why I think we have to have a context. I do like to say, again, this is not a discipline problem, but what's really interesting is what has shifted and why is this more relevant now? Why are we experiencing all of these? Again, someone else is saying all three, but one and two. Why is this more, I don't know, it just seems to be amplified right now. Let's see here. I'm going to share, give me a moment. I'm just going to pop over here for a couple of seconds and share what has actually changed in our bodies. When we think about like typically after age 40, our bodies change. We all know that, right? It becomes more sensitive to stress and the effects of stress. It becomes less tolerant, I should say, of underfueling and blood sugar swings. And also it's faster, our body is faster to go into that protect energy mode instead of utilizing and kind of, having your metabolism be at a really high rate. When people say, oh, she has a fast metabolism, a lot of times it's easier for the body to go into that protect, conserve, store fat mode. And this is not failure. This is adaptation. Now, why does this adaptation occur? Remember what I just said about the brain being the missing link that most people are not giving attention to? Well, here is this interconnectedness of when we think of this cascade of hormones. I want you to notice what is at the top of the cascade. The hypothalamus and the pituitary. These are located in the brain, right? This is where our neurotransmitters are bathed and communicating or not communicating as well as they used to the rest of the body. Now, these hormones don't work in isolation. At the top is, like I said, the hypothalamus, which is really kind of the control center of our thoughts, our beliefs, and our expectations, and the way we interpret, make sense of, and make meaning of what's happening in the world. The pituitary is that gland that helps us to regulate our physiological environment. Again, balance what hormones are secreted and what hormones and messages are being communicated to the rest of the body. And then it goes down the line to the adrenals and down to the thyroid and then the sex hormones, the uterus. You'll notice we tend to, like, old school thinking was, well, we know that women's sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone and so forth, diminish and drop off as she enters perimenopause and menopause. So we tended to think like, oh, all the activity, all the changes happening down here. Well, guess what? There are receptors for all of those sex hormones in every area of your body. So yes, even in the brain, changes in estrogen, changes in testosterone, changes in progesterone have an effect so that the communication that's happening in the brain with those neurotransmitters that I just described, those three, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, are they're weighted differently, right? So here's a simple way to look at it. If you are making a recipe and you're making a recipe for I'll do what I did this morning, my morning smoothie, right? My morning smoothie. And on my morning smoothie, I put in my celery stalks, I put in my broccoli, I put in some chia powder, I put in some ice and some water and my protein powder. I like to use a chocolate flavored protein powder. If I put all the ingredients in, and normally I put in a handful of strawberries and maybe a half a banana in with the spinach and the other stuff, that's gonna give it a certain flavor, right? So normally, I want to say normally, pre-perimenopause, your whole body has a certain mix of chemicals and hormones. Now those hormone levels start to diminish. Estrogen and progesterone and testosterone drop off. So what's changed in the brain is we no longer have the same level of those hormones. It's like if I smoothie, if I took out the strawberries and I took out the banana, then guess what? The flavor of the smoothie is going to taste very different. I'm going to notice the spinach and I'm going to notice the celery a lot more potently, right? So the imbalance in our neurotransmitters, what we were talking about before, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, all of a sudden become louder because we don't have that buffer or that, kind of, I call it like a buffer or margin from our sex hormones being at the same level that they had been previously. Does this make sense? I'm going to pause here because I kind of got a little technical, but when we think about the changes in the body as sex hormone levels go down, now all of a sudden that changes the mix of the chemicals and the hormones that are signaling in the brain. So now our dopamine, our norepinephrine, our serotonin start to have a lot more influence or even more noticeable. Like my smoothie, if I take out the strawberry and I take out the banana, guess what? I notice the spinach and the celery a lot more. It's not quite as tasty as it was when I had a little bit of the fruit in there. So yes. So okay. So I'm hearing yes. Jenny says yes. Anna Stella, yes, this makes sense. Okay. So this is really why, and I like to look at it's an invitation, right? When we step into midlife, our body does change. No doubt about it. Chemically, physiologically, changes are happening. Now, that can be a really tough pill to swallow, or I like to put this in the sense of it's an invitation. It's an invitation for us to become more in tune with our body, to really notice the signals that your body is sharing, and to then start to partner and work with it. And we're going to be talking about how we talked a little bit about kind of guessing which signal or which pattern is most loud and speaking the loudest for you. But what I want to do is to introduce, there's kind of like three different common types that I tend to see happen. I'm letting some more people in here as they're continuing to join. But three patterns that I see regularly and consistently in the years that I've been supporting women. Hi, Whitney. Great to see you. There's so many patterns that come up repeatedly, and there tends to be these big common mistakes that show up in these patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and describe these patterns. And let's see here. Do I have, let's see if my assistant's in here. Could she put the chat to, or put in the chat the link to my hormone freedom assessment? Because I definitely want to invite you to take, if you haven't yet done it, take the hormone freedom assessment. This assessment is different. Actually, I don't see her in here. So hold on. I'm going to pull up that link. Give me just a moment. I apologize. To make sure we get that link in the chat. This assessment is, oh, you're here. Okay, sorry, I didn't see you. Can you put that in the chat then for us, Regina? Thank you. Oh, she did. Perfect. Okay, I didn't see you. So in the chat, I just dropped in there is the link to the hormone freedom assessment. And why is that important? Because it's going to be different. It's not going to be asking you about your estrogen levels or your progesterone levels. It's asking you some patterns and some lifestyle habits that start to show up in your life. And it will point us to which pattern is showing up most profoundly. Now, you may say, like, hey, I've got a little bit of all of these things, and that's fine. That's very, very common. But what we want to do is we want to start to say, what is the loudest pattern? Because when we prioritize clarity is key when it comes to creating actual progress, things that move the needle for your body. So I'm going to share with you a little bit. The first pattern that I see is what I call energy and output fatigue. This is where there's like a mismatch of what's going into the system and what's being asked of and demanded of the system, right? And this is where typically it's a dopamine imbalance. So this looks like the woman who pushes, the woman who starts strong. Maybe you stay disciplined and you're until you're not, and then you crack. And it's really hard to like continuously take that action. So again, here, this can be tied to dopamine imbalance. We tend to see this show up with regards to really difficult time losing weight and feeling fatigued. This is a common pattern. Type number two. Now, if you get a chance, like I said, the link is in. Maybe Regina, if you want to pop that into the chat one more time, just to make sure everyone gets the hormone freedom assessment. And I even encourage you, if you're tuning in here, go ahead and pop it up on another separate browser and start to take the assessment. So you can see it's 18 questions. It's fairly quick, about 5 minutes to take it, so you can see what's showing up for you. Now, the second pattern that I see most often is what I call stress response. This is usually correlated with that norepinephrine. We talked about the communication, right? This is where you're swinging between extremes. Maybe you're all in or all out, or you feel wired, like Anastella was saying, like, I just feel like my brain isn't turning off. So there may be that miscommunication or that imbalance with the stress response. The body is protecting you. It's in conserve mode, and therefore it's basically like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's coming around the corner. So it's going to hold on to, especially this can be really challenging for women who feel like they're frustrated or stuck with weight. Or we have some other women where, and this is where I was previously, where it's not like a weight gain issue, it's actually a muscle wasting issue, because lean muscle tissue is really, really important to keep on the body. And the body is like burning through fuel. So it's breaking down lean muscle just to keep up with the demands of the stress. And then the type 3 is what I call fueling and digestion challenges. And this is actually where oftentimes women can be undernourished because either physically or emotionally or mentally, it's almost like their body isn't allowing the full absorption of, even if they're eating healthy foods. Like I can tell you, I have so many women who are like, I eat really healthy. I eat gluten-free. I eat dairy-free. I eat, lots of fruits and vegetables. Yet they're not getting the full benefit of the foods that they're eating and consuming, partly because something is happening in the gut. And this is really usually correlated with serotonin. We know that up to 90% of serotonin is actually generated and synthesized in the gut. So if we don't have really good, strong digestion and healthy gut function, It makes sense that's going to impact the serotonin levels, right? So this is, I also have kind of like a less physiological, but I see a strong connection very often with fueling and digestion and difficulty receiving and always receiving emotional support, receiving from other people, like literally just like taking in and receiving. There's often a correlation there. So I'm going to stop and let's, like I said, take a look at the hormone assessment if you haven't yet. I'm going to check over here into the chat. Anna Stella says, yes, weight loss in your case. Okay, right. So this happens too when there's that communication change is happening in the body and it's changing how the body is responding just because we showed that whole axis of connection. Now I want you to know you are not random, you are patterned. And I want to give you a real life example. This is a woman, a client I worked with, Tanya B. And she just very common attorney, mom of two. She has a son in college, a daughter in high school, works about 45 hours a week. So full life, like she's very busy, has got a lot of things she's managing. She had tried everything before coming to me. She had tried Weight Watchers. She had tried Noom. She had tried the whole 30. So like really intentional about like, what am I doing and how am I like, she wasn't lazy. It wasn't for lack of effort. She wasn't inconsistent. She was following the advice that is so common that didn't match her body anymore. And her pattern was a type 3. We knew that there was definitely a lot more happening in the gut that was preventing her from actually digesting and absorbing and getting the full benefit of these nutrients. So it was hard for her to remain steady. Like, honestly, she wasn't eating enough of the right foods to give her that serotonin to make sure that she was absorbing the nutrients and she could remain steady in her moods and feel good. So once we figured it out, gave her some targeted, clear, step-by-step roadmap, she was able to see this change. She went from 185 pounds to 151 pounds. She reduced her anxiety medication. She felt more grounded and stable, and she lowered her body fat by increasing her muscle mass. So most importantly, she learned how to trust her body again. Like this is so key is because all of a sudden it's not a guessing game. It's not like I've tried everything and I'm just in this place of like, why bother? It's not even working. It's you see the pattern, you respond appropriately, and you give your body that stepping stool to start to make progress. So, is anyone else inspired by that? Is that like, okay, I want some more of that. I want to have that clarity. I want to know. Put a me in the chat if you're like, I'm ready for that level of clarity and focus. It's not about doing more. It's not about throwing spaghetti on the wall. It's about really understanding. Yeah, me, definitely. Okay, me too. Thank you. Okay, so what we want to look at is the three biggest mistakes that I see. Whitney's saying me too. Yes. Number one is what I call metabolic mismatch. And this often happens when we have people very frequently in that type 1 energy and output fatigue. When you've been taught to eat less and I'm saying it backwards, eat less and exercise more. We have all been indoctrinated into that world, whether it be eat less from intermittent fasting, start your day at 12 and only eat till dinner and then don't eat for breakfast, whether it's eat less, count your points, right? Whatever it is, and move your body more. That advice actually at the surface level, it makes sense, right? Because there is a physiological metabolic component of burning fuel. The problem is when it's taken too far or too long, when it's gone to extremes where you've been in a deficit and what's actually happened is your metabolism has slowed down. The metabolism is no longer working like a high fuel furnace. It's actually been in this place of conserve, conserve, conserve. Now we've had changes with our sex hormone levels. And so the body is thinking even more, especially if we have a dopamine deficit of like, oh man, we just have to hold on to everything that we're getting. So the body feels unsafe. So what is the solution if we have mistake number one, metabolic mismatch? The solution is reverse diet. Yes, I know that can be scary, but it's about rebuilding trust in your body. Your body may have a it needs the nourishment. The cells need what they have. So for some women, this looks like, I mean, I'm thinking of women who oftentimes will come to me and they're like, oh, in my fitness pal, it says I should be eating, 1,300 calories. So I've been trying to hit my 1,300 calorie and tracking my macros. And I'm like, well, how long have you been doing that? Well, I've been doing that for, off and on. I kind of do it for a while and then fall off and do it off and on for the last, I don't know, 8 years. That's the problem, is the body hasn't gotten a clear signal of I can predict and expect that I can have adequate supply of energy ongoing, right? So what we actually need to do in the reverse diet is calculate what is your true metabolic need. And many women are surprised that when we take their current body weight, their current activity level, and their basal metabolic need, what you need even just to function, even if you're not doing anything, just to produce hormones and to pump your blood and to breathe, there's a basal metabolic rate. Plus, if you have a little bit of activity, if you do some walks or you do some strength training, that's going to be up. We have a maintenance level that is oftentimes higher than what women have been feeding themselves for years sometimes. So no wonder their body is operating in that starvation mode. So we need to reverse diet and actually increase your calories. So yes, that means you actually get to eat a little bit more food, and it's not about being perfect. It's about, being intentional with the foods that we're eating and slowly ramp it up with your weight staying stable first before we cut and reduce. And now what happens is your metabolism gets faster, your metabolism is stronger, and then your body learns to trust, oh, so when you introduce a deficit, it now responds with weight loss. So metabolic mismatch is first we have to fix your metabolism. Before we go into cut mode and reduce, it's not going to do anything except keep you in that fat storage signal if we're trying to reduce and the body isn't actually have proper metabolism, right? So that's mistake number one. Now, mistake number two, and I see this often with, again, that kind of that type 2 stress response that comes up in the hormone freedom assessment is control, what I call control mindset. And this is where you're trying to fix your body through a lot of different things. This was me for sure when I was first diagnosed with my autoimmune condition. I was trying to do everything. I was trying to like really strict diet. I was taking 12 supplements. I was going to an acupuncturist. I was going to a therapist, like trying to do it all and then tend to fall off of like, oh my gosh, it's not sustainable. So it's kind of that all or nothing. Cleanse, restrict, push, do more, or it's almost like kind of wipe out and crash and burn. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but this is when your body doesn't trust the extremes, right? So what is the fix for this? The fix here, the solution is in adopting an 80-20 mindset. It's learning to, you know, stack more consistent positive choices. And your body, again, responds to repetition, what is done majority of the time for a duration of time. I would say like confidence isn't a matter of something you just have. Confidence is competence over time. So we want your body to feel confident. That means what are you choosing? You have competence, you know what's good for you, you know what's healthy. What are you choosing repeatedly over time? That's how your body will have confidence, right? So this is another thing I like to we do with our clients is this floor versus ceiling mentality. It's really helping you to identify on the tough days, like life gets hard, and there's going to be some days where a parent is going into the hospital, or a child is sick, or something happens and it throws your plan off. So we need to have those floor days. What is the minimum that I prioritize and can focus on and can do for my floor days versus a ceiling day, which is like, hey, everything's going my way and it's going according to plan. So what can you do consistently, even on your hardest days? That's really the focus. And that's the skill, if you will, to focus in on for that type 2, that, stress response pattern that comes up. And there's a control, like I said, really switching that control mindset into one that is more 80-20, living in the middle. And then we have type number 3, which is honestly, I think it's difficulty receiving. This is your fueling and digestion imbalance. I talked about this before, how there's actually a correlation. I see this time and time again. There's a correlation between receiving nutrients for your body and your gut health, and emotionally receiving, not being the one who somewhere along the way you learn to put others' needs before your own, and you take care of everyone else. You may be the one who's, making the lunches, planning the appointments, doing everything for everyone else, and then you try and fit yourself in after that. Maybe it's the job that comes first. Maybe it's the family, the kids, the whoever, the neighbors, the community. Other people have the first priority, and this pattern is what creates like putting yourself at the bottom of the list, right? You don't show up fully for yourself. And again, no judgment here. I think this is a very, I've lived in this place for sure before. When we prioritize everyone else's needs over our own, skipping, this is like, hey, I'm going to skip my workout because all of a sudden I have this, you know, sporting event that came up for my daughter. I've been there, done that. Or my mom needs some help over here, so I need to do that. Or this work deadline is coming up, so I don't have time to go out for my morning walk, right? Again, no judgment here, just visibility. What can we see in terms of how this pattern, and yes, it's connected to how we can actually be receiving nourishment, how we are prioritizing planning meals for ourselves, nourishing and taking care of our physical needs related to serotonin. I talked about serotonin is connected to the gut, right? There's also a financial hesitancy that sometimes comes up, whether it feels like investing in yourself is unnecessary or selfish, whether it be like buying yourself that new Aura ring or getting, you know, the massage that's going to help you like de-stress and relax. Signing up for the yoga class, like these types of things, self-sabotage patterns that come up where you don't show up fully for yourself. And the solution here is to practice keeping small promises repeated repeatedly for yourself. It's about chunking it down, doing with doing out, keep the schedule, change the scope. For example, what do I mean by that? I say this all the time with clients. If you have a commitment where you're like, oh, you know what? I want to get out for a morning walk every day, but then something happens in your day to throw that off track. Well, okay, maybe I'm not going to do my normal 30-minute walk or 2-mile walk, but you know what? I'm going to keep the schedule. That's still going to happen. I'm going to keep the promise to myself. This is really good for, again, serotonin, which is pain perception. It's all tied together in really interesting ways. But I'm going to keep that walk, and maybe it just means I go out and I literally one lap around the block, and it's going to take me 7 minutes. But it happens. I reduce the scope. I keep the schedule. So the solution here is learning to trust yourself and practice showing up for yourself. One thing I also find that's really, really helpful is surrounding yourself with other women who do have that respect for themselves. And when it makes it easier when they feel that, self prioritization and self-love, and then it's easier for you to get in a practice and a habit of doing it. So I just have to pause here now because I've been talking for a long time. What questions are coming up? I'd love to hear, what's stand out, what's not how, or who has any questions based on a lot of this information that I've been sharing so far.
I have a
Please feel free to
question.
type them. Yes, who is this? This is who, I can't see who's talking.
Oh, that was
Lisa Michelle. Yes, hi.
hi. So I was trying to take the assessment and I felt stuck because I feel like most of what I'm experiencing right now are directly associated with what I shared with, the car accident, the surgery,
Yes.
and and the medicines. And even though I stopped taking everything. Um, but I just still feel like there were just so many effects from that whole experience that it's
Mhm.
difficult for me to gauge, you know, answer the questions accurately. So I don't know if I should wait or if I should take it. Like, literally based on, what I am experiencing now, but I know what it is. I already,
Yes.
because
So
I know my body. I'm very in tune to, like, what's going on and like how things were
yes.
before. Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, first of all, let me just acknowledge, and I know that that's really hard, that you've had a lot of challenges since the accident. So I absolutely can understand that your situation right now is not what had been the norm, right?
Right.
There's a marked shift, and there's a very clear correlation to that shift of the effects since the accident. Here's what I would invite for you, Lisa Michelle, even just to think about, and recognizing that this is not your baseline. It's not what
Okay.
historically has been the normal. I do
Mhm.
think it would be helpful to take the assessment with what is now, simply because it will give a little bit of clarity around where to streamline and focus to help what is happening now. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like, you're still,
Okay.
like, we understand that wasn't your norm, that wasn't your previous baseline, yet it is what where the body is now. So it's
Yeah.
it's only going to amplify the return, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. That makes sense. It does. Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
I guess in my head I'm where I was before December. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But
yes. You're
yeah,
like,
but
we
in
want to get you
reality,
back there and even better as quickly as possible. Recognizing that it takes healing, does take um,
yeah.
time as
Yeah, it
well.
does. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. What other questions are coming up, ladies? Feel free to type them into the chat, or if you want to just go ahead and unmute yourself, you can do it that way. Any other questions here? All right. I have someone's typing to me. Okay, so what if I feel like I'm between two of them? Yeah. So it is very common. Like I said, these things do not necessarily operate in isolation, and they're connected. We looked at that cascade of connection, that HPATG axis. The beautiful thing here is when we're talking about helping to really lean into these patterns and what's going to help move the needle. Once you start to improve one, it helps all different areas. So when we think about like that metabolic mismatch, for example, if you have a history of kind of trying to cut the food and reduce the calories and stuff for a period of several years, and that's just been the norm. Well, when we get that metabolism fixed, and when we can increase your body's ability to bring on board nutrients, to have adequate energy sources, and to ramp up how it uses energy, this is going to help balance blood sugar levels. And that is also going to improve digestion and fueling. It will also help support the stress response, because sometimes when there's whether it be an emotional stressor or a physiological stressor, some of those physiological stressors can come from lack of appropriate nourishment. So you'll see that these things kind of weave together, and helping one will help the other areas as well. Any other questions coming up here today? Well, I do want to share at this. Oh, it looks like someone jumped out and is coming back in. Here we go. Um, at this point, but hopefully you're starting to realize something, and realize that this is not about just getting more information. It's about clarity on your body, clarity on the pattern. And that's exactly why I created the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. This is not another program. It's really designed to be an experience so that you can understand your body and work with your body in much greater capacity. So inside the 30 days together, we partner and we look at your assessment results. We also do a deeper dive in your health history, see what's, comes before it. And we identify your dominant pattern. And then together we build that personalized roadmap. so that you know what to focus on first and how to start to put that into practice. Not generic advice. This is not just guessing or trial and error. This is, custom to you, custom to your body and where your body is right now. So, Regina, can I have you put the link in the chat, please, for the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience? In here together, we're going to do a deep dive, a one-on-one session, like I said, to really get clarity on what's happening in your body, what the pattern is, what that top priority is. And then I know it's not a matter of like, okay, here's the roadmap, now go and do it. Honestly, that's not setting people up for success. So we're going to connect each week and have personalized coaching. It's a chance to like see that momentum build, see what's happening, see what questions are coming up. Because oftentimes it's like, okay, we'll talk about, okay, it's a matter of really adjusting some key nutrients here that perhaps your body needs. Now, you may have a question about what comes up and we need to adjust or adapt. So every week we're touching base with personalized coaching over the 30 days. And you're going to get clear direction of how to support your body. So instead of wondering what to do, instead of knowing, what exactly your body needs and kind of just feeling stuck, I want you, by the time June comes around, by the time May comes around, you're in a place of empowerment. We talked about confidence. Confidence is competence. I know what to do, what my body needs, and I'm doing it repeatedly over time. That's how you're going to have that confidence. Confidence in your health, confidence in the improvements. And this is a chance to gain that support, not have to do it alone. But this is for the woman who's like, hey, it would be really helpful to partner together and get some guidance here. Now, this is for the woman who's tired of starting over and tired of guessing. And I want to share this investment now as a special for $497. Now, let me say this, you can absolutely take the things that we talked about in today's workshop and piece it together on your own. Certainly. And for some of you, that's going to work and that's going to work really well. But if you're tired of trying to piece this together on your own and you're tired of starting over and you're tired of guessing and ready to finally get some traction and understand your body, then your next step is the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. So I invite you to step in. If you recognized yourself today, just know that that's not random. This is your body asking for a different approach.
I was just going to say that I don't know. I started at the beginning of April, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a question, but actually yesterday, my sister-in-law was telling my husband because he's kind of he's on it too, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, he's coming along with you.
Making the smoothies with spinach, getting more vegetables, but she was like all about like I do intermittent fasting, and I was like, nope, this is not what I need right now. I mean, I need something different. But I did have a question about breakfast. Are there certain times that you suggest, breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yes,
Um,
great. Is that's your question? Is the timing of the food?
yeah, yeah, I didn't because I'm like, well, is that a big deal? I don't know.
Yes. Well, actually, Whitney, what's really helpful is actually the more recent studies show that women often are affected even more so than men, because a lot of studies on intermittent fasting historically have been done on men. And there is definitely science and evidence to show that that can help to release weight and do things and different benefits like that. However, because of what we talked about previously, the changes in the brain with the neurotransmitters and the chemicals, women who enter the kind of what I would call that the activity part of your day, which is the morning, that's when we typically have cortisol at our highest peak, is when
Mm,
you, a couple hours, about an hour after you wake up. It's because it's turning on your system. It's getting you up and ready to focus mentally. It's getting you ready to physically move and to do things like starting your day. Think about cortisol awakening responses there for a reason. It wakes you up and turns on the system. Women who enter their morning activity, whether it be cognitive activity, like going to work and thinking and starting to like plan for the day, and or physical activity, get up, do a workout, get their morning started, get the kids off to school, whatever it is, if they enter that in a fasted state, that puts the body into stress response much faster and more readily throughout the rest of the entire day. So the
I
short
know
answer, the longer,
I get hangry. I get stressed too.
yeah,
When I have my breakfast.
yeah. So that, and that's exactly what I have so many women say, well, man, I'm not hungry in the morning. And I go, well, that's partly because we have suppressed those hunger cues for so long that now your body isn't even responding with the typical let's fuel before you start your day. Now, this doesn't have to be a full, big, huge breakfast, but where I'm going is it is helpful to have some nourishment, ideally protein forward breakfast, protein forward nourishment before you go into that kind of like, I would say the first 90 minutes to 2 hours of your day,
Mhm.
especially if you're going to do some type of a walk or a workout. Being fueled before that for women is really important.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes, my pleasure. Any other questions coming? Any other questions here? Thanks for bringing that up, Whitney. And like I said, I would like to, again, you can pop into the chat if you are asking for a different approach and you do want that clarity, then definitely your opportunity is to step into the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. And if you're not sure if this is the right fit for you or you have questions about it, then you can message me. I would definitely rather have a conversation and see what's going on with your unique situation, but rather than have you sit with uncertainty. So, any
Oh,
other
I have one
questions?
more thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
just because I didn't realize that maybe this, I mean, I don't know. This was like talking about doing what I'm doing. But I
Yes.
just want to get as much information as I can just to keep on track. But I was really hesitant. I had read your book and then I signed up. Somehow I started getting all the emails and it just took me so much to call you that day. And
Yeah.
and then I had already bought my little daily journal. But now that
Yes.
I'm doing the clarity, this is really good to every morning do the morning intentions and the evening reflections. And if there's certain
Yes.
things that I'm like, I'm never doing I'm never doing that every day. So then I'm like, well, I'm gonna try to start to put that in my day. And I don't know, and just trying to stick to, you gave me a couple things just because in my mind I need to have like a direction, for the now
Yeah.
because I'm always like thinking about so far in advance, and getting frustrated. So it's really been helpful. I think it's really helping already. So it's only been a week or two. So just
Whitney,
a
thank
little
you.
pitch.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it because like I'm like you. I'm like I having somebody to help clarify and like, okay, I'm not just at my own just like guessing and hoping and praying technique. But would you mind holding up? That's a journal that
Oh
I
yeah.
share with clients because clarity is key. That daily journal that Whitney just shared, and she is in the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience, like you said, just started in that. But it's a great opportunity to see your own patterns, right? Because this is where I would say, the brain can be our greatest ally or our worst enemy, depending on which way it's going. And oftentimes we can get stuck in the drama instead of actually looking at the data to see, well, what are the things that are happening routinely and consistently, and how is that informing my body about how it responds? So yes, I love that you shared that and that you
Yeah.
have that and you're using your daily journal. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Um,
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions, any other things as we get ready to wrap up here, ladies? I am here. Oh, and just so you know, I will be back here again next week. We're moving to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm starting this Hormone Freedom Hour. So you'll be able to tune in every Wednesday, midday, to get really good clarity, insight, inspiration, perspective on keeping your health top priority. Next week, we're going to be talking about the hormone conversation that your doctor hasn't had with you and what's missing when we typically go to our doctor for our annual checkups and how to just be more informed and think about that in a new way. So can't wait to see you next Wednesday. Any other questions as we want to make sure I have everyone supported here? Chris, thank you. Oh, my pleasure, Chris. So great to see you as always. Well, thank you all for joining. I do invite you next week to bring a friend if there's someone, woman that you know that could really benefit from these conversations and having more insight, having more clarity, then please invite her to join you next week. I always feel like just we are powerful when we support each other and come together. Thank you. My pleasure. Yes, my pleasure. Great to see you, Joanne. Great to see you, Jenny. Great to see you, Anastella. Thank you for tuning in. Great to see you, Chris. All right. If there's any other questions, any other things that I can help support you with, maybe we'll put into the chat one more time. Hi, Anita. I know that you were able to tune in. We will have the recording. So if you registered for the session, then you will be receiving the recording. So you can go back and listen to some of the beginning parts that if you came in and joined us late, you will have access to that. So I always encourage you to register. If it's a topic and you're interested, register for the session, then you'll get access to the recording later being sent out as well. All right. Well, so good to see everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And we'll be back here again next week. Actually, not the same time, 1 hour later, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. That is 1 Eastern, 10 Mountain, and I'm sorry, 11 Mountain and 10 Pacific next week. Thank you.